With the research lesson behind us, it's time to zoom in on practical applications. In Lesson 2 you will see examples of legal visualization. In doing this, please try to not get distracted by the legal content. The topic may be interesting and relevant to you or not at all, but the point of looking at these examples is to see the visual structure, the framework, the box in which the information is organized. This will give you a range of ideas to critically pick from and see what kind of information fits best in what kind of framework. Some of the examples will look more polished and illustrated, others more basic. Again, the difference is in the conceptual fit rather than the visual flourish. I said it before, this work is grounded in its legal roots. We've organized the sample infographics in 6 different types of visual frameworks. Each map has its own visual entry point, a place that helps the user to get started with the information. We will take a closer look at each framework and we'll see examples of legal infographics based on these basic structures. Number 1. Central theme. The hierarchy of information starts in the center. The most important topic to direct and anchor your attention is literally central. From here it branches out to related details and categories, from higher to lower hierarchy of importance, or from higher abstraction to more detail, from zoomed out to zoomed in. Mind maps, concept maps and many common diagrams are built from this framework. This checklist for contract drafting reads from the center outward. The center presents the topics and focuses the attention. The next branch is towards the main topics to be included. For example, who and what, which artist is selected to create what kind of sculpture. The work of art box is the center for the more detailed topics to be addressed in this section. The third level of detail. For example, how is the creative autonomy for the artist warranted or limited? You've seen this image earlier in this course, the visual that goes with the privacy policy on my company's website. The central image of a hand represents something human, something personal, something you want to keep and protect. Or it could be a hand held up as a way to say stop. It also signals how my company does use the personal data that we get in our hands. From this central image, the 5 fingers each relate to a main category of information, the second circle. The third circle around the center gives very short summaries of the actual policy. This example fits many patterns of legal information. At the center you see the rule, the main rule. In the surrounding quadrants, the conditions or criteria to qualify for this rule. As a disclaimer, this graphic is not based on any particular national legislation or policy, but an example of the type of information that is likely included. Once you have this framework, you can add more layers of information, working from the center outward. You can bring in visual elements such as icons, combine it with other infographics related to the same topic. For example, a flowchart for the employee on how to file such a request with their employer. By copying and pasting, you can start building an entire visual toolkit from one central visual. We will get more into that in Lesson 4. The second framework, layered. Here information is arranged similar to a dashboard or interface. You see an overview that hides the more detailed and technical processes under the hood. Depending on how much information you need, what task you need to perform, you look deeper. This is the form we're most used to in digital environments, websites, apps, smartphones, etc. It's hyperlinked information. This is a design for a visual interface for a service agreement by an IT consulting company. The total set has about 20 visuals. Here you see a few selected images to give you an idea of the framework. Starting with the plain text, all clauses are grouped into 3 categories: project, costs, various. This is the first layer. This next layer shows 2 additional layers of detail that you would see if you click on one of the icons. The core of the project is defined by each party's commitment. The essence of the contract, the mutual commitments. What do you get? What do you give? This is the third level, with the actual text of the contract. It looks very familiar to us now, since this is how most of the hyperlinked information on the internet is organized and presented. However, it's not how most legalese is organized and presented. Please pause for a few minutes and think of a legal document that you have worked on recently that could benefit from this layered approach. Pay attention when you find detailed documents online and check if there may be some layering going on. Once you recognize the principle of this framework, you will see many opportunities to apply it, even in a simple PowerPoint deck. The next example was designed by a former participant in a legal visuals training for the National Homeowners Association in the Netherlands. Later she became one of our trainers. This design is also built on the framework of layering information. The first layer gives a visual entry point and indicates the topic, a step-by-step manual for annual meetings of homeowners associations. The building and the meeting table indicate the subject matter. The icons on the bottom represent the different roles: the owners, the board, the president, one single homeowner, and the legal representative for an owner. The next layer shows the 8 steps of the guide, each topic connected to the back of a chair. Where, when, etc. does the meeting take place? In hindsight, the designer could have added numbers to easily find the place to start. The third level of detail is connected to the topic on the back of each chair. This one is about attendance and gives the detailed information on this topic. The color in the text references the colors of the icons. Instead of an extra layer for the roles and responsibilities, this layer of information is represented by colors. You will hear more about color coding in a little bit. Number 3. Roadmaps can be literal roadmaps, process maps showing how to get from A to B, or more metaphorical, conceptual roadmaps. The road is the structure along which the information is organized. The spatial metaphor is often used as part of decision making, arriving at crossroads. Here we see a spectacular roadmap on how a bill becomes a law in the United States. Other nations might call this from legislative proposal to law. It's a journey along different institutions to the final desk of the president. A key traveler on this roadmap seems to be the lobbyist. He is the only person represented with a visual icon and shows up at various places. This infographic was created as part of a series for a legal education documentary on defense potential death penalty cases, titled The Life Penalty, based on a method of criminal defense attorney David Wymore. The decision-making process is represented as a roadmap. It's a decision path with different symbolic chambers that the jurors have to enter, walk through, and exit after step 4. This was created as part of a visual framework for a law firm to illustrate the scenario of litigating a specific case in court versus negotiating with the opposing party. The topic involved assessing the chances, risk that the contract would be terminated or dissolved. To decide between a certain crossroads, the traveler, the client, needs information, which is indicated by the road signs. A roadmap is a natural framework for decision making. As a lawyer, your involvement often requires advice so your client can make a well-informed decision between different scenarios. Information can be connected to the different routes and scenarios. A visual like this would never be used standalone, but as a communication aid combined with additional written and verbal reporting. The visual does not replace the legal information. Number 4. Icons can show up as supportive elements, visual pointers, but in the icon framework, the icon serves as the main visual structure to organize the information, just like traffic signs, standing out from a distance. This visual on the human rights impact of the Olympic Games has an activist message. The legal information consists of the illustration of human rights violations and concerns. Additional text can be used, but the visual as a whole and in its elements anchors the message and can be a continuous visual reference point throughout longer text on this subject. This napkin is distributed at ski resorts in Colorado to bring awareness to the Colorado Skiers Responsibility Code, with important impact for liability and limitations on liability for ski accidents. The icon is designed as a safety warning in the form of a traffic sign. The rest of the information is grouped around this central icon that catches attention and delivers the core message. Here you see a website from the Dutch Government Authority on Cultural Heritage, part of the State Department for Education, Culture and Science. This set of icons gives the entry point for the laws on management of cultural heritage objects. The first row of icons represent the involved organizations, for example, museums and courts. The second row represents the type of norms and rules, for example, registration, security, and accessibility. These icons are consistently used throughout the website. With repeated use, the icons can stand in for the words. The users start to learn the language of the icons and can easily track the type of content by searching for the matching icon. The icons we have seen thus far are mostly illustrated ideas, But some icons are natural legal visuals, condensed micro-visuals with embedded legal content. They represent, summarize, reference legal concepts and legal rules. They prescribe and prohibit. Traffic signs are natural legal visuals. A stop sign means stop, and violating it by driving by the sign with full speed results in a legal infraction of the stop rule. Here you see a set of icons that was developed by Local Context, a legal advocacy organization for indigenous intellectual property rights. This set of icons marks the traditional knowledge origins with the intent to give the related objects or processes a distinct legal status. Petroglyphs existed before copyright laws, and many aspects of cultural heritage, including technological processes such as indigo dyeing or weaving patterns, existed in oral cultures without formal legal structures. Therefore, the owners or the cultural community they belong to often cannot easily claim and protect their rights in current legal systems. This framework of icons has some similarity to the Creative Commons licenses. The display of the icon is a claim of legal status or an advocacy statement that legal status should be granted. The traditional knowledge set of icons is different from the Creative Commons licenses, in the sense that a legal copyrights owner chooses to make a statement that these rights are not claimed and instead made available under certain conditions. The icons therefore represent a statement of permission, again, micro-legal statements. 5. Color code. Belonging to a certain group of information is indicated by a certain color. Our eyes quickly map and process sameness and difference through different clusters of colors. Connections are made with colors rather than with a box or an arrow. In this example on how to renew a license for a nuclear plant or storage facility, the steps in the process have different colors. At first glance, they seem to indicate a certain meaning or a cluster of process steps. I am not a subject matter expert, and I assume very few of you are either. So let's look at this with the eyes of a general user's audience. Maybe we are a business that wants to apply for a license renewal. Does this make sense? Well, start is green. Green is a typical go start color, just like in traffic lights. The decision is orange. I'm not sure why. The blue path is explained in the legend on the top right. These steps are not applicable in subsequent applications. The yellow steps represent opportunities for public interaction. The gray steps and the light green steps give us no specific information, so it's not clear what these steps mean or how they're different from each other. The color coding seems partially successful as a visual framework to make the information more accessible, and partially unsuccessful. This infographic was created by a former training participant, a legislative and policy lawyer with the Dutch State Department. His information aims to show the relationship between criminal and administrative enforcement of a set of regulations. The red sections represent criminal law, the green sections administrative law, and the yellow hybrid sections where both systems intersect. Number 6. Timelines are a framework where a sequential clock time or a series of process steps define the grouping of information. Calendar time can be included. It's a natural fit for planning actions. This litigation timeline shows the relationship between certain events, certain dates in time, and certain types of information. This visual framework can be used to make arguments in trial, to explain processes, deadlines, for example, to file an appeal. It's also an excellent way to mark the contrast between past, present, and future on the timeline, where this is relevant to make sense of the information. As a souvenir from coronavirus restrictions, we are looking at a visual from the Dutch government. The plain language title states, Basic rules for everyone. Step by step. What can be done when? The dates on a horizontal timeline are paired with the vertical columns below, indicating the different rules and restrictions in the corresponding period of time. Timelines can also be used more implicitly to communicate a step-by-step process that needs to be followed in sequential order. In this example, no dates are given and no linear timeline is shown, but the user is clearly guided through the steps. The numbers 1 to 6 enhance the step-by-step instruction. The sign in the shape of an arrow guides the user immediately to the place to start with step 1. The 6 frameworks for legal visuals are basic building blocks from which hybrids and combinations can be made. For example, an icon signpost with a color code. Many infographics use a combination, but you will quickly recognize that the best infographics have one dominant main structure. The information designer made a clear choice. When too much is going on, it will look like a junk chart that adds more confusion than clarity. We've seen this infographic earlier as an example of a roadmap. During in-person trainings, I always ask participants to take some time with this map to see what is going on in terms of information design and visual frameworks to organize the information. Some find it beautiful and engaging, others find it overwhelming, too much. I find it an excellent example to see different visual frameworks combined and to reflect on how each of them is effective or not. Please take some time for yourself. Which visual elements work well for you? What would you leave out to make it better? What adds to its clarity? And what takes away from it? My general comment is that it depends on the audience, the setting, and the purpose of how this infographic is used. It might, for example, be effective as a general visual aid for one or more high school classes on civics education, or an introductory college course on journalism, or maybe as an illustration in a magazine article. Definitely in a context where the audience has time to take it in and there is an expert guide to talk them through, answer questions, etc. Maybe it works too as a framework for legislative staff, as a planner and tracker to post on the wall as they work through legislative projects. Possibly a simplified version showing only the main path might work better for this purpose. In legal education, I would not provide this map to law students, but I would assign it as a project to create their own maps based on the course learning. This graphic clearly is a hybrid, a mix and match of different visual frameworks. Which of these 6 different types of visual frameworks can you identify in the previous roadmap? How are laws made? I see 1. Central theme, 3. Roadmap, 4. Icon for the lobbyist who shows up several times, 5. Color code, and 6. Timeline. Not literal as calendar time, but as sequential steps. And time is a factor as we understand from the purple segment, put on calendar. Beyond the conceptual structures that I've laid out here, many free-form designs work well to communicate legal information. Visual narrative in the form of a series of comic panels take people through various steps, add legal roles and tasks to the various characters. Please take a look at this inspiring story featuring Professor Camilla Anderson. The end of the video responds to an often asked question on visual contracts. Are they legally binding? Her website will show you many examples. Many others in the legal field are part of the movement for legal comics and graphic justice. This contract is created by another pioneering Australian design team. Wouldn't it be great if every handyman or handywoman uses something like this? In the court system, many small claims revolve around these types of services without any written agreement at all. The Creative Contracts team from South Africa, led by attorney Robert de Roy, started with award-winning comic contracts for companies that work with low literacy workers or workers with language barriers. From there they expanded to different industries with different user groups, because these contracts serve parties better across the board. Their visuals are fabulous and the organizing frameworks to lay out every clause of the contract are even better. The natural narrative language shows step by step what the contract entails. This contract is between the financial advisor and you, the potential investor. And what am I agreeing to? Every part of the agreement is expressed in visual panels that tell the story of the contract. The legal team has developed a strong partnership with a design and illustration company. So please keep in mind, you don't have to be an artist or a designer yourself. This is a multidisciplinary method where you can collaborate with designers and illustrators to shape the legal frameworks that work best for the needs of your audience. Please take some time to look at the websites of these pioneers in comic contracts. I hope their work inspires you to envision the transformation that visual law can bring to your own practice. Many clients are shy to tell lawyers that they really have no interest in a typical boilerplate contract. It's up to lawyers as domain keepers, experts in the legal landscape, to bring confidence and creativity into the field. Once lawyers have adopted the mindset that it can be done well, they can show different models and can work with their clients to create readable and user-friendly legal documents. I hope this gallery walk has inspired you to be part of the change.